Welcome to Save Our Sleep. Tizzie and the Save Our Sleep team believe it's every child's right to receive comfort, a parent's right to demonstrate love, and everyone's right to a full night of sleep. This podcast is not a medical or scientific volume, but a collection of tried and tested solutions and tips based on my many years of experience with babies and young children. Its main purpose is to help parents understand and avoid sleep problems in young babies and toddlers.
We'd like to recognise the Wadawurrung people who are the traditional owners of this region, which Tizzie and myself live and are recording today's podcast on. We acknowledge and respect that they have taken care of this land and water and raised children in this nation for over an extraordinary 70,000 years. The Save Our Sleep podcast is dedicated to helping you prevent and solve sleep problems while having some fun along the way. We endeavour to discuss all things family related, starting from pre-conception all the way through to an adult child leaving home and beyond. Some topics may be triggering. If you find this is the case, please reach out to your or your child's health nurse or general practitioner.
Welcome to episode number 11?
Jeez, yeah.
Is it? Well, midweek cracks 10.
Yep.
So this is episode number 11. You were talking to Tizzie Hall and Kylie Szabo, and today we are going to talk about, we're going to try and stay on topic, and we're going to talk about all things
Sick babies.
sick babies. And we can't stay on topic because I've lost my page where I've written everything. Oh, you were going to read out what Lucy said. So we had a lovely thank you from a lady called Lucy. So a couple of weeks ago, we did a podcast talking about being out and about on a routine.
We did.
And Lucy said, what did she say?
Lucy said, I found this podcast really encouraging. As a first-time mum, there is so much to learn. As an introvert, I don't mind spending time at home, but found it affirming that what I've been doing to get out about with my 10-week-old is what you suggest. I'm challenging myself to get out twice a week in order to see friends and family, but also to get my little one used to those transitions. After being on the program for 10 weeks, I wish I had listened to this earlier on to reduce my anxiety around getting the sleep schedule right. Thanks, ladies.
Oh, sorry. So that's really good and positive. But then there was another lady as well, I noticed, who said she was supposed to be going to a birthday party this weekend. Did you know her name or who she is?
No.
So I saw it last night.
remember.
She said she was going to be supposed to be going to a birthday party this weekend, and she wasn't going to go because the baby, or she didn't know, and she had listened to our podcast. And it was really encouraging because the party was at 1:00, and she'd have to leave the house at 12:30 and drive for half an hour, and she's a bit worried. And everybody was saying, go to the party, mental health.
Yeah.
And then it's more important. And it was so fantastic to see all of my clients, readers and friends giving the advice I would give. They all pretty much said what I would say, except a couple of things were slightly different.
I believe it was Nancy.
Yes?
Yes, Nancy Barak. And she said, getting on the routine, just watch the podcast and have a question. I usually don't leave the house, especially not during her awake time, because I don't want to risk stuffing up her sleep and routine. My little one is 16 weeks and I wake her up at 11 for her first sleep. Say I feed her at 11 a.m. and pop her straight in the car to go out, she ends up falling asleep. So difficult to keep awake while driving. She ends up catnapping the whole routine from there. It's a mess because she's just had a 30-minute nap, so I just prefer to stay home. This Saturday, I have a party that starts at 1 p.m. It takes 25 minutes to get there. But if I start driving at 12:30, she will fall asleep in the car on the way and catnap because she's not tired enough.
And then we all basically went in and said to, put her in the car, go, let her sleep in the car. Then when she got there, have her up for a bit, then do a pram nap or a pram sleep so that she has a bit of a sleep and then she wakes up for the feed time. Again, getting out and about is so much more important. So what we were saying was, or what I was thinking and said, and other people said was, that put her in the car to go at 12:30. Mm-hmm. If she falls asleep in the car, it's outside sleep time, but that's okay. When you get there, don't pick her up and immediately try and transfer her into a cot or keep her asleep, because it's probably going to go wrong. Mm-hmm. And also, because she started her sleep half an hour earlier, she won't have been tired enough to have a 2-hour sleep.
Yeah.
So we basically said, when you get there, get her up and show her off and show everyone your beautiful baby
Just
and enjoy
enjoy
some time. Then you want to put her down for the sleep so that she has a decent sleep and wakes up at feed time and you're back on track.
Yeah.
So it was like, put her in the pram, go for a walk at like 10 to 2, and then even if she only sleeps 40 minutes, you've only got 20 minutes to sleep.
Yeah.
She might sleep right through till 3 o'clock because she's had that extra wake time.
Yeah.
So it was just really good to see everybody giving such positive feedback. So that was really good, and good that the Lucy had said how much she had enjoyed it. So the Out and About Sleep podcast was really helpful.
we really love hearing how you
Which
guys
was-
find the podcasts.
Yeah,
So.
really good, and really helps us and encourages us to keep going with them. So now the other thing I wanted to touch on was, you had said, Kylie, I have a habit of cutting anyone off because my brain is so full that if I don't cut you off, I forget what I wanted to say, but I'm trying to write it down now so that I don't cut you off and then I remember to go back to it. So what you said in one of the podcasts, we were talking about solids, and we were talking about starting solids and how starting solids and allergies, and how maybe dropping the spoon on the ground and picking it up and cleaning it, etc. That's in our solids podcast, how that might have a connection to allergies. And you said, I would like to know what's going to happen with babies who've started solids during COVID and how it's going to affect them, and if it's going to, that's what you were saying. And I presume you were going to say, because, everybody was sterilising everything and cleaning everything, but I cut you off because I didn't want to forget what I was saying. And then I was listening back to it and I went, oh, that was a really good topic that Kylie had brought up. So what did you want to know about it? What were you thinking about it?
Oh, I just wondered if with COVID, it'd be interesting to see with COVID, because as, when I was little and, your parents would just pick the dummy up and you just lick it off and things like that. But with COVID, we've been so worried about interacting with each other and we're sterilising everything obsessively. But you were saying that you believe that just having that exposure might help reduce allergies and things like that. And because we're seeing such an influx of allergies that we didn't really see when we were younger.
Yeah. And I was saying, I thought the allergies I was saying that I said Amanda Harris, but it was Gillian Harris.
Oh, sorry.
I said Amanda Harris in the podcast when we were talking about solids. I said a lady called Amanda Harris, but it's actually Gillian Harris. Amanda Harris, I think, is a client. But anyhow, I said Gillian. So Gillian Harris had written an article on how the exposure to germs we got as children was far greater than the exposure to germs children
get today.
Well, not today. This was 18 years ago.
Oh, okay.
So she was talking about when I was a little to now 18-year-olds and how they didn't get as much exposure to germs, and was that why the allergies, the immune response to allergies, where the immune system plays a part and gives people terrible allergic reactions, was it all connected? So, and then you were saying how
with COVID,
could it be, were we going to see a difference with COVID? And it was interesting. Yep, so that was interesting. So now, but we were going to talk about sickness and sleep. So a lot of people, especially because kids are now getting COVID.
It's hard.
But it's really hard to advise parents at the moment with sleep and sickness. I'm finding it really difficult because we even have one mum in the support group and her baby's in hospital with croup, and then they did a PCR test and the baby has COVID and the baby has croup as a result of COVID, but the rest of the family don't have COVID. But then she was saying that the rest of the family, I'm trying to remember this from the post, had COVID weeks ago. So it's it's all a bit strange, and it doesn't just hang around and hang around and hang around. It's, with other illnesses, it was very set times. It was like, your baby's got measles, mumps, rubella, chickenpox, whatever they had, flu. We knew, depending on the illness, after a set amount of days, I can't stop yawning. Oh, sorry, I don't know why I keep yawning, but
you might need to put Tizzie down for a nap.
So after a set amount of days, you could go back to normal. But we're not finding that with COVID. Some people are sick with COVID for a long, long time, and it's making me insecure. It's making me giving parents sleep advice insecure. So how are the parents feeling?
Well, it's really hard. As you know, I've just had the COVID in our house, and I had it, and then on day 4, my oldest got it, And then on day 6, my youngest got it. But my middle child, he managed to avoid it. We were stuck at home for 2 weeks and he somehow just didn't catch
Why were you
it.
stuck at home? Because you don't have to be stuck at home anymore.
No, but because – so I had COVID and then because my youngest had COVID, I had to stay home with her. So I had to quarantine for myself.
So was your middle at home was still going to school?
No, well, my middle – so I got it and then on my day 4, my oldest got it. So we were both quarantining at home, but my youngest and my middle were still going to school.
That's what I was asking.
Yeah.
Yes.
And then so her last day was the Friday. Then on the Saturday, my youngest tested positive, but we were testing every day as required. But somehow my son, all 3 of us girls had it in the house at one time.
But then you also have to slightly wonder whether it was a PCR test would bring it up.
No, we did PCR tests as well because their dad was getting married, so we wanted to make sure that they could be at the wedding. And
of course, and you're doing the right thing.
Yeah, but
And could they?
Well, my daughter couldn't, but my son managed to. So
she couldn't go to her dad's wedding?
No, because she had COVID. So she got it on the Wednesday and their wedding was on the Saturday. So it was really sad.
It's really sad, but it's really good that you didn't put anyone else at risk.
Yeah.
It's a real hard catch.
It is. And, for me, it really threw me. I was actually kind of grateful that my youngest had COVID for the second week because I got to recover another week. But I'm finding I'm still really tired. I'm getting headaches. I've got the brain fog. Yeah. So
this
who knows what it's going to do for babies.
So let's maybe take COVID out of our sleep advice and go back to our old-fashioned advice because we don't know how to advise for COVID. So if your baby is sick, the first thing I would always do is I like to have the mini crib. So I like to have the mini crib, just a smaller version of a cot, and I like to sleep the baby in the mini crib, bring them into your room and sleep them next to your bed. Mm-hmm. If you don't have a mini crib, you should not take your baby into your bed. It's much safer for you to drag a mattress into their room and sleep on their bedroom floor. Mini crib is easy because you've got a younger child and you can move the mini crib. You're not going to unpack their cot, fold the cot out, move the cot into your room. It's not a good idea to put them in a porta cot in your room because the porta cot is too hot. They'll get too hot in the porta cot, so that's not a good idea. So the best idea is for you to move into their room on a mattress on the floor. I know you might not get enough sleep, but if your child is sick to the point where they really need you, they have a temperature, you need to keep an eye on them, that's often works better because then when they're better, you can move out of the room. As if you move them into your room, then you've got to move them back into their room, which is a bigger transition for them. Yeah. Also, if you take them into your bed, it's a really big risk. A lot of people just out of desperation when they're sick. But then, of course, the kid's got a fever and your bedding's warmer than theirs and it's actually not safe. You should always reduce their bedding when they're sick. So we always say to reduce the tog of the sleeping bag. I have got the serious yawns. I can't stop yawning. I'm yawning continuously.
Showing tired signs.
But I'm not tired. I think it's because I go to bed early the night before I do a podcast. I think I probably should stay up late and I wouldn't be as tired. So you put them to bed and you should change the tog of the sleeping bag. So if they're in a 2.5, change it to a 1 tog. If they're in a 1 tog, change it to a 0.5 tog. I always say, have a 0.5 tog sleeping bag in your medicine cupboard. Have it and not need it, then need it and not have it. The same as a thermometer. It's always when you need it. And Panadol in the middle of the night that you can't get it. Now, here's an interesting thing about COVID. Since COVID, where we live, there's no longer late night shopping or late night chemists. They don't have the staff. So where you used to have a 24-hour chemist and you used to have chemists open till 10 o'clock, they're all gone. All of our local chemists, I'm talking about the whole of Geelong, pretty much, they all close at 7 o'clock now, even the big one next to the hospital. So don't get caught out. Lots of people can't afford to pay for staff or don't have enough staff because of all the illnesses to cover shops, So so have it in the medicine cupboard and not need it. That goes for Panadol, 0.5 sleeping bag and a bottle of 7-Up. You should, did you know that?
I usually have lemonade.
No, lemonade is not the same as 7-Up.
Okay.
There is something about 7-Up, not Sprite, not lemonade. There is something about 7-Up that stops gastro. Now, I should know that because I'm Irish. And in Ireland, the mammies always have 7-Up. Or we used to have Lucasade with plastic wrap round it. Did you have that?
No.
We had a bottle of Lucasade in a clear white bottle. And then the colour was put on with orange plastic, which was round around the top, and you had to open the bow and pull the plastic wrapping off when we were kids. That's how bottles became coloured, yes. Anyway, so Dara was really ill in Ireland, vomiting, and after a long time, like probably a week and a half of vomiting, we took him to the children's hospital and they gave him 7-Up and we went home. We had to pay €500 because we weren't living in Ireland, excess at the hospital, and they gave us 7-Up. And I felt so stupid because it works.
Yeah.
You go to KFC, get it from the drive-thru if you're sick, and 7-Up stops gastro. I don't know why. If anybody knows the scientific reason why, I don't know what the recipe is for 7-Up, but in your medicine cupboard should be 7-Up, 7-Up, Vicks Vapor Rub for your baby's feet. If your babies are coughing, you put Vicks Vapor Rub on their feet and socks on top. I say never put socks on your baby because you could get hair and they could get the hair tourniquet. But when they're sick and coughing, yes, just make sure the sock has got no hairs in it. The 0.5 tug sleeping bag, baby Panadol or baby Nurofen. A lot of people don't realise. I think you shouldn't give Nurofen for certain respiratory illnesses. I don't know which. Check with your doctor or pharmacy. And I think COVID may or may not be the same. Okay? But you can give your baby Panadol and then Nurofen and rotate them. Check with your pharmacist exactly how. Right. But you can give both and rotate them. So always have those. And we're dropping the sleeping bag and we're changing the bedding. It's in the bedding guide. You could get the bedding guide it's everywhere. You'll be able to get the bedding guide. And what else do we want to say about it? So if your child's sick and they're crying and you go into the bedroom and you need to do something about them being sick and you need to give them medicine, I always say, pick them up, take them. So if you don't know if they're sick, you can still do this. Pick them up, take them out of the room, bring them out into the lounge room, or bring them out wherever you can bring them in your hallway or landing, whatever you've got in your house. Check them. Do their temperature and so on. If you need to give them Panadol or Nurofen, do that. Keep them up for 20 minutes. After your 20 minutes up time, you then put them back to bed, but you put them back to bed as though they're going to bed for the first time. So, normally if you were to wrap them, you might talk to them while you wrap them in the same way. Good night, time for sleep, whatever you normally do. If there was somebody who normally kisses all the teddies goodnight because they're a 2-year-old, you'd keep them up for 20 minutes and then you bring them in and you kiss all the teddies goodnight or the trucks or whatever it is that your child does. With sleep. What else have we got to add about sleep, Kylie?
I wonder, and I've seen the question happen a couple of times, is when their baby is sick, do we give them extra sleep or do we stay on routine?
Yes. So when your baby is sick, yes. When your toddler's sick, when your child's sick. So it comes back to what's similar with the newborn baby. With a newborn baby, we say they can have extra sleep but outside their bed. So if your child, so let's choose different age groups, right? So let's say you've got an 8-week-old baby. If they're sick, you need to watch them like a hawk, okay? And again, you would allow them to sleep extra time. You would only put them down in bed at 8:45 in the morning, get them up at 11. Down at 1:45, up at 3. All the rest of the time, yes, they can sleep, but up.
Yeah.
So they can sleep. I want to sleep. I've never yawned so much in my whole life. I am continuously. What can that be? Am I having like an allergic reaction or something? Don't know. What causes you to yawn continuously?
I've heard that your body needs more oxygen. Maybe you need to go outside.
Maybe that's what it is. Maybe I need oxygen. Maybe I'll drink some water.
That might.
I just can't stop yawning.
Yeah. It's never fun. And then like when you're trying to get that really, really big yawn out and it just doesn't come.
Yeah. So we were saying with they can sleep outside sleep time. Let's say you've got a 9-month-old let's go to the next stage. So you've got let's say you've got a 12-month-old who sleeps one big sleep in the day and then has a cat nap or something. You might have to adjust it. They might have to have their big sleep in their cot and then that sort of cat nap in the afternoon. There might be no point putting them down in their cot if they've been asleep on the sofa all afternoon. But let them sleep on the sofa, but supervised.
Yes.
You have to supervise them. Accidents can happen outside of bed when they're sleeping in places other than their bed. But you can't just put them in the bed because they're sick. When we're adults, when you're sick, Do you go to bed all day, or do you tend to get up, put your dressing gown and put something on and come and lie on the sofa and watch the telly?
I'm a sofa kind of thing, and then I just nap if I need to.
If you're really sick, you'd be in bed. But even in hospital, you have a telly in your bedroom, you know? So, yeah, they can have extra sleep. That is a good point. Yes, extra sleep outside.
What about,
sleep time.
Do they need like extra fluids with meals?
So a breastfed baby shouldn't need any extra fluids because they should get their water from the breast milk. Even when feeding on a routine, it seems like your milk changes slightly when they're sick. It's like your body knows what to give them, even when you're feeding on a routine and you're giving that nice, steamy, quick milk, thick milk. But you don't want to give them extra. Like some people say, oh, when you're breastfeeding, you've got to put these extra feeds in. So then it's like, what comes first, the chicken or the egg? So you've got a baby and the baby feeds at, you've got a 10-week-old baby, let's say, and the baby feeds at 7, 11, 3. And then somebody says to you, oh, if your baby's sick and got a fever, you need to hydrate them. You need to give them extra breastfeeds. Well, then you're going to give them reflux on top of the sickness. So then you're going to give them watery milk on top of the sickness. So I would give them water to hydrate them when they're sick, not extra breastfeeds. I wouldn't give them extra formula feeds. If we're sick, we're going to drink extra water. We're not going to have extra dinners. We're not going to, you know. So, you know, you don't get up in the middle of the night and eat when you're sick.
No.
I don't. If your baby has always slept through the night, you had a beautiful rule of thumb. What was yours? How many days or weeks do they have
7.
to sleep? So if they sleep through the night for 7 days or 7 weeks?
7 days.
Then they no longer have night feeds.
Yeah.
So then if they wake up sick, you don't feed them because they don't need food. So I personally would get a syringe and syringe, so if it's a tiny baby, syringe water into their mouth. I would make sure it was either bottled water or boiled cooled water, depending on where you live. You've got to check what the water is, or give them water on a teaspoon, or even let them drink from a cup. You've got to be careful that they don't, what's the word?
Aspirate.
Yes, you've got to be really careful with it. You can't get the water and squirt it down the back of their throat.
No, I used to
You've
do
got to
it
put it in the corner of the mouth,
into the cheek.
and just squirt a little bit of water into the cheek. And then you've got to make sure that they swallow it, depending on their age. But talk to your GP or pharmacist about how to get extra water in. But no, don't do extra breastfeeds, because then you're going to cause the reflux, and then they're going to become even more unsettled. And then what comes first, the chicken or the egg? Were they sick? Did they have a temperature? Did you decide they needed extra breastfeeds? Did you start feeding them more? Did the water turn from nice thick, not the water, did the breast milk turn from nice thick creamy breast milk to now watery breast milk, which then makes them feel sick because they're refluxing and it's coming up more often? Formula fed babies, are you now teaching them to snack? Are they never going to digest the food that's in their tummy, which also goes with breastfed babies? Are you putting more food in on top of non-digestive food? Are they going to get tummy cramps? You know, all of this. So you're just causing problems by doing extra feeds. But yes, you do need to get some water. Maybe you even need to get hydrolyte, or what do you call it here? Diorolite? Hydrolyte?
Yeah.
I think we call it Diorolite at home. And I've been here a long time. I should be learning the Australian words, but maybe because I work from home, I don't. So hydrolyte, something like that. Find out what age you can give that from, and maybe be giving your baby some of that, especially if they've started solids, to keep their salts up. You should be able to give them some of that.
Now, we were talking before about the fever. If a fever has reduced, can you put the blankets back on?
Yes. So if they have a fever, you reduce their bedding. If you give them, if you take their temperature and the fever is gone, even if it's because they've got a bit of Panadol in their body, yes, you can put the bedding back on, but you need to keep an eye on them. And if the Panadol starts to wear off at the 3-hour mark, you'll know when your baby's Panadol and the fever starts coming back. You then need to take the bedding off again if the fever is coming back.
So it's really important that when babies are sick and they do have fevers, even when the Panadol has kicked in and it's reduced the fevers, to go in and still regularly check them, and hopefully you're sleeping in the room as well, that you're able to just go over and
if you're worried, go to the children's hospital. Go to your closest children's hospital. If you were worried, it is far better. I mean, obviously you wouldn't go to the children's hospital if you could go to your GP, but I'm talking about if you're really, really worried. Children can go from a bit sick, not looking very sick, to really sick really fast, you know? And if it's far better to go and seek medical help. I'm nurse on call. Phone nurse on call.
Always
But then every time I call nurse on call, I don't know whether it's because I call when my kids are really ill, But every time I call nurse and call, they tell me to go to hospital. They tell me to call an ambulance.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Oh, so you've not had that?
Well, I've had them say, maybe, but generally it's either we'll organise a GP to give you a call, or it's, they'll give me, follow this, do this, and call us back.
So maybe it's because I call them when my kids are
really
lack
sick.
of panic is what the problem is. Yeah. So, phone nurse and call. Don't be scared to get medical advice. You are much better off getting advice and not needing it than not getting it and suddenly something terrible happening and your child being so sick that it ends up in days or weeks in hospital.
Yeah, it's such a tricky time because, with COVID still around, like you don't feel like you can go to the GP sometimes, but,
and
telehealth.
Kids don't talk.
Yeah.
They can't tell you, hey, Mum, I've got really sore ears, or I've got this, or I've got that.
Yeah, follow your instincts, 100%.
And what was I going to say about... keep talking because it needs to come to me. I should have written it down.
That's all right.
Oh, so, you've got a child. They wake up in the middle of the night, they're screaming. You're thinking it's really unusual. So if you've got a child who sleeps all night and they sleep perfectly and you don't hear from them, and all of a sudden they're screaming, that emotional screaming cry, whatever.
Yeah.
And you think, or else they're whimpering, or you can hear them from the bedroom door or something.
Yeah, it's out of the ordinary.
Don't be scared to go to them. You go to them, get them up, whatever, and then you can put them back to bed.
Well, that's what I love
settle themselves.
about your routines. And I actually saw feedback from one of the parents that they really love that their baby is such a good sleeper that when something out of the ordinary happens, they know that it's because the baby's unwell or it's that they need you to go in, and then 9 times out of 10 they're sick or the tooth comes in or. And that's what I found with my kids. Like I always knew that we were going to have a bad day because we've woken up sick. And we just gave comfort and stuff, as you said, like, we on the couch and extra cuddles.
So you in bed and you hear them and you think that they're sick. As I was saying, don't be scared. You go in, get them. You can't go in, do all this stuff in the cot and then walk out.
No.
Because they're going to turn emotional. If you've made the decision to go in, get them up, bring them out, work out what the problem is. So you've done all of that. You've got a sick kid. You've got through it all. Your child is now better, okay? Your child is eating again. If they're at the running age, they're running around again. They're happy again. Everything is good. But every time you go to put them in bed, they go, I don't want to go to bed, and they start fighting the boundaries, right? What do you do? Well, it happens a lot.
It does.
Because you've given them all this extra attention when they're sick, and then they think, oh, maybe I don't have to go to bed. Maybe, they don't realise that you've given them the extra attention because they've got, not that you wouldn't give them attention anyhow, but they haven't realised that you've been a bit worried and nervous about putting them down in bed because they've got a temperature or they're sick. They think you've just become a worried and nervous parent, and they feel insecure as a result. Because they feel insecure as a result, the next time you try to put them to bed, they're testing the boundaries. They're like, I don't want to go to bed. When they're well, not when they're sick. Yeah. And then what do you do? Well, you get the Save Our Sleep book out, you read the settling advice for your child's age, and you go back to basics. And you talk to your child. Children understand what we're saying far more than we give them credit for.
Yeah, they do.
Whether it's the tone of your voice, but even a 6-week-old baby understands. You say, you are not sick anymore. Tonight you're putting yourself to sleep. Or tomorrow night. Or from this day you're putting yourself to sleep. Mummy's going to put you in bed and you need to put yourself to sleep. Then yawn again. And you need to put yourself to sleep. Yep.
Yeah.
You have to get them ready for it. Talk to them. Then you follow the sleep and settling advice in the book. If you asked in one of the podcasts recently, what about the deep end approach? Do you do the deep end approach?
Or the late
approach for someone? And then I realised afterwards, because you were trying to bring up the topic and it didn't come across, I didn't pick up on it at the time and we didn't discuss it. You were trying to bring across the topic of what about the babies who've never done Save Our Sleep and the babies who've done Save Our Sleep?
Yes.
Yeah. And what the difference is, right? And actually that's good. It will lead on to our reader's question as well. So if a baby has never done Save Our Sleep and you are trying to teach them how to settle, You go in, you lay them down. This is an older child, a sort of toddler who's standing. You go down, you lay them down, they stand up, you lay them down, they stand up, you lay them down. You keep doing that until a certain point, and then you walk out of the room and you leave them, and then you come back in and you stay with them until they're asleep.
Yeah.
But then we say, with a child who has done Save Our Sleep before, did know how to sleep,
Yes.
and has the skill, is just refusing to use it,
Yeah.
there's a difference.
That's right. That's what I'm asking. Yeah.
And
Or
what's the difference?
Is that they know how to self-settle, that they're, they've gotten used to that certain, extra cuddles from mum and stuff like that. So they've learnt to go to sleep that way, and now they're wanting it. So it's that protest about how to go to sleep.
But the difference is you don't have to do all the laying down at the start.
No, you don't. No.
Yes, so you just
'Cause they know how
it's
to.
bedtime,
Yeah.
into bed, and you don't have to do all this, which is in the book.
Yeah.
So it's very clear. There's a difference between babies who've never done Save Our Sleep and babies who have done Save Our Sleep. Now, on that note, we have a question from, was it Grace Cooper?
I believe you said Grace. Yeah.
Yes. And her question was, what do you do if somebody comes to Save Our Sleep? So I have a bit of a bee in my bonnet. This is where her question comes from. So her question was, what do you do if somebody comes to Save Our Sleep who has not heard of us till 6 months and they haven't started solids at 16 weeks? Okay, what advice do we give them? And I think Grace's question partly comes from the fact that in the support group, we're quite adamant, you need to start solids at 16 weeks. If you don't start solids at 16 weeks, we can't help you. And that's a bit to do with my mental health and your mental health, because if we've got people in the support group, so this isn't Grace's question, this is, I think it's coming from this particular area. If we've got people in the support group and they've got a baby and they're following the routines and they come to 16 weeks and they decide, I'm not going to start solids because I don't think my baby's holding its head up, or I want to wait till closer to 6 months, or loads of people have said to do baby-led weaning, or loads of people have said to wait till closer to 6 months. That's fine. If you want to jump off the cliff and not do solids, jump off the cliff. But we're not jumping off the cliff. We're not picking you up at the bottom. Yep. So if you jump off the cliff, so you know that our advice is solids at 16 weeks. You, between 16 and 18 weeks for a full-term baby who's over 5.5 kg. You know that's our advice. You know that we're asking, we think you should do that. You choose not to do that. Yeah. You choose to jump off the not giving my kids iron, not, slip. You jump off the cliff and end up with sleep regressions.
Yeah.
Don't then come and ask us to fix it. It's not fair. We have so many clients who are following our advice to the letter. It's not fair to ignore them because we're fixing other clients who chose to jump off the cliff. Am I being mean?
No, I think it is your advice, and that should be then if they are having sleep regressions, that should be the first thing that they give a try.
No, that's different. Okay, that's moving on to Grace's question.
Okay.
I'm talking about if you've got clients in the group, and they know we're saying to start solids at 16 weeks, and they say, no, I don't want to. I'm going to start them at 6 months. Yeah. When they then get to 5 months, 5.5 months, they've got all these sleep regressions. So a child who is sleeping 12 hours at night, 2 hours sleeps during the day, catnapping during the day, waking again for night feeds. Yeah. They chose to jump off that cliff.
That's right.
Yes. Yeah. Should we go and give them all this help to try and fix their baby and get them on solids? Or should we be giving our time and effort to the clients who are following the advice?
I think it's for following the advice, because simply the other person, what we're going to say is you need to start solids. So that should...
And they chose not to.
Yeah.
So they jumped off the cliff.
Yeah.
Do you understand what I'm saying? So when people say, oh, it's really unfair because Tizzie's not giving these people advice because they refuse to start the solids, that's why, because it's my mental health. Like, I just get upset thinking, oh my goodness, if you'd started the solids at 16 weeks, I wouldn't have you in this position. Okay? So that's a different topic. Yeah. But do you understand why?
I understand why you're saying what you're saying.
And sad about helping people who've chosen not to take the advice.
Yeah.
Now, I think that's partly where Grace's question stems from, because then Grace is saying, so with those people, it's like, well, we are going to help them. Don't get me wrong.
We always do.
We always help people, but
It's frustrating.
It affects our mental health because we're saying, oh, why didn't you? And in our head, and we're saying, oh, we should be helping this mum because she's new and she's trying to follow everything and she's just starting out, and you chose not to do the advice. So we feel it's a mental health battle for me as to who I help. Who, in the airplane, put your oxygen mask on first. Like, I always try and do that, but this becomes awkward. Anyhow, so Grace's question, I think, leads on from that. So with the people who haven't started solids, don't want to start solids, have jumped off that cliff, they're on their own. Does that mean? To a certain degree. Then you think it's mean?
Oh, look, I think it really depends. I think, we can jump in and just say, look, our advice is that you need to start solids. And then because we can't guarantee that that's not going to cause the issue. And
then it is mean to a certain degree because, of course, these mums, you've got to put their mental health in case. And then they're like, well, but I was told by this person, I was told by that person, I was told by the other person.
It's so hard because you get so much conflicting.
They need to leave the support group and go and join that person's group and get help from them, because they will know how to fix the baby who's waking up at night again because they're hungry. Does that make sense?
What would you recommend if someone doesn't start the routines till 6 months?
Well, this is what Grace is asking. Yeah. So this is different, but I'm trying to ask what we're doing about the people who are on the routines who just choose not to start solids.
Well, I think that's what it comes down to, is if you've chosen not to, you can't guarantee your results.
And then they want to be fixed.
Yeah, but the advice is going to be simply start solids. That's why we ask the questions, so we look at it.
So then Grace is saying, but what? So then I think Grace's question leads on from this, because Grace is saying, but then what about the people who haven't known to start solids at 16 weeks and then they have got the book at 6 months and gone, I've missed the starting solids train. What do we do with them?
Yeah.
And then I guess other people in the group could also follow this advice, but they need to do it themselves.
Yeah.
We can help them because they didn't want to take our help. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I understand what you're saying.
So the advice then is you need to get those solids into that baby as quick as possible. So if you come with a baby at 6 months who hasn't started solids, what do you do? Well, you have to understand that you're going to have night waking.
Yeah.
You cannot leave your baby to cry at night. It's wrong. You have to understand you're going to have catnapping in the day. You cannot fix that catnapping if your child has not had solids till 6 months. It just doesn't happen. It's really difficult. You can try to fix it, but then you see people saying, oh, move the sleep out this time, move this out this time. All you're going to do is end up with an exhausted child.
Yeah, you really need to look at the need.
The problem. The solids was the problem. Yeah. So if you come along at 6 months, you start...
It's the hunger.
You start the 16-week solids at 6 months.
Yeah.
So you start exactly the same way at 6 months, but you have to try and build up really quickly to large amounts of food. Yeah. And you can't start the protein till they're 8 months. So you've missed that whole opportunity. Yeah. They're going to have very little iron in their body, and you're going to have to try and get the rice cereal into them. And so you're going to be feeding them, and you follow the early on advice, but at the older ages.
Yeah.
So where I say 5 months, you change that. Where I say give them this food at 5 months, you change that to give them this food at 6 months. Where I say give them this food at 6 months, you change it to give them this food at 8 months. It's very difficult to build the solids up. A lot of children at that age don't want them. A lot of children refuse them at 6 months. It's very difficult to build the solids up at that age, but that's what you do. You try and build them up.
What I found too is come 6 months, they need a large amount, but they're only starting off with taste. Whereas when starting them off at the 4 months, by the time we hit up to 6 months, they've developed that and they're having those bigger amounts.
Well,
they're not just having taste and getting used to it.
When you think about it, a 6-month-old baby needs to be eating. And this comes back to what we were saying about a baby doubles their size. A teenage boy goes to the fridge and eats and eats and eats and eats and eats, and he's only growing a little bit. A baby is doubling its size. It needs so much food, So with the food, we've got to think of the amount, like you've got to think of the size. So they need a full bowl of breakfast cereal in the morning, mixed with fruit, mixed with rice cereal, or depending on the age, oat cereal, followed by a bowl of fruit by itself. At lunchtime, they need, how many meals do we think they need? They need a large amount of food, which you can't give them because they've only just having a teaspoon.
Well, that's right. And it needs to be 1/3 protein, carbs and veggies. Yeah. But you can't give those proteins if you started later. So let's think about it
this way, yeah? So really, let's look at the food, not the puree for a minute. Okay. Yeah? So a baby of 6 months needs to be eating at lunchtime. I looked at this and it fascinated me, okay? It absolutely fascinated me, right? A baby of 6 months should be eating half a chicken breast, 2 full carrots, 2 medium-sized potatoes, and say 4 heads of broccoli at lunchtime.
Wow.
But that's what they are eating if you look at the puree.
Yeah, true.
If you took their puree and on-pureed it, did a rewind video and on-pureed it, that's what they're eating.
That's crazy. Yeah.
Like if you think about it, if you were to take, if you go home and take half a chicken breast, 4 small carrots, 2 potatoes, and 4 heads of broccoli, you know, the little
the little heads.
Florets of broccoli,
florets,
Put them in a pot with boiling water, boil them and pureed them. That's what your child's eating.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
Now, a baby who's just starting solids today at 4 months, they're having a teaspoon.
Yeah.
Look, they're having 2 slices of carrot. Mm-hmm. So they should be having all of that. Yeah. They should be having a plate of food, and they're having, I'm trying to think of something the same size, but they're having 2 small slices of carrot. Yeah. Can you see the difference?
Yeah, that's it.
That's insane.
Yeah. And then having this, then there's this second meal of the sweet course of the fruit.
Oh, of course.
And then,
so that's like an apple.
And then on top of that is the finger foods.
Yeah.
But if you're studying at 6 months, you really shouldn't be introducing the finger foods until they've been on solids for a few months so that they get aware of it as well. Otherwise, they need to develop that swallowing and, and chew.
Just look at it in that way. Look at the plate of food versus the little pot of puree, what it actually is, what it looks like on a plate, yeah? That's what they need to be eating. And you can't do that if you start solids at 6 months.
Yeah.
But so if you haven't started solids and you've only picked up the book at 6 months, what do you do? Well, what you do is you try really hard to build them up to that amount of food as fast as you possibly can. Yeah. But it's not easy.
No.
But that's what you do.
Yeah.
So I hope that answers your question, Grace. And we will leave it at that, and we will be back to talk to you again for Midweek Crack, which is going to be, do we know what our Midweek Crack topic is next week?
No, I don't think we do yet. So surprise crack.
I thought I knew a minute ago what it was going to be, and now I've forgotten again. I've got a habit of doing that. Maybe I'm getting memory. Maybe I'm lack of oxygen.
I think you just need to sleep.
Memory loss. Anyway, over and out. Thanks for listening.
Thanks, guys. Bye.
You have been listening to the Save Our Sleep podcast, brought to you by the International Baby Whisperer Proprietary Limited. You will find more information about the Save Our Sleep philosophy, products, support, and how to watch the mini clips that accompany this podcast at saveoursleep.com. You may find the Save Our Sleep social media accounts by searching Tizzie Hall on Instagram, Facebook, or Twitter. Please subscribe to my YouTube channel for all my how-to videos and to watch the podcasts. If you enjoyed the podcast, please rate it and share it with your friends. I would like to thank Kylie Szabo for co-hosting, Fundamental Studios Geelong for their amazing recording studio, Nick Dale at Primer Films for this production, and most of all, you, the listeners. Without you, there would be no reason for this podcast. Please enjoy, stay safe, and Kylie and I will look forward to chatting with you again soon.